Her eternal Valentine. Amelia sat beside the dying fire, watching the glowing embers flicker and dance like menacing eyes in the dim light. The frosty air nipped at her skin, causing goosebumps to rise up despite the heat emanating from the flames. As Ethan handed her a mug of warm liquid, she couldn't help but notice the change in him. His once handsome face now held a predatory glint in his eyes, one that chilled Amelia to her core. His voice, in its usual smooth tone, offered her red wine as a Valentine's Day treat, but this time it felt more like a threat than a loving gesture. The loop had been repeating, each moment playing out with eerie precision. As it continued, Amelia uncovered new layers of Ethan's possessiveness and obsession. Their once sweet banter had devolved into sharp sarcasm and coercive behavior, yet she remained trapped in this cycle, unable to break free from his hold on her heart. Amelia desperately clung to what was left of their once passionate love, but it was slipping away like sand through her fingers. As the days passed, the air grew colder and mirrored the ice that now enveloped her heart, as she realized that their love was lost forever in this never-ending Valentine's Day loop. And underneath it all, there was a lingering feeling of something more sinister at play, turning their dreamy escape into an eternal nightmare drenched in blood-red hues. Amelia's hands shook as she held the mug of wine, its crimson liquid appearing thicker and more viscous than usual. She felt it slowly drip down her fingers as Ethan's handsome face flickered in the firelight, his features suddenly taking on a sinister edge. "Finish your drink, my love," he purred, his eyes gleaming with a dark intensity. "It wouldn't be a proper Valentine's Day if you didn't." Amelia's body recoiled as she took a sip, the sickly sweet taste of the wine coating her tongue like a thick syrup. With each swallow, her stomach churned with revulsion. But Ethan's eyes burned into hers, his grip on her tightening as he forced her to drink more. The world around her spun, shadows creeping in like claws reaching from the darkness. She fought to keep her eyes open, fearing that if she closed them, she would never escape the perpetual nightmare. "That's it," Ethan crooned. "Just a few more sips." Ethan's words, laced with a nauseating sweetness, slithered into Amelia's ears as she took the last sips of the potion. Its effects took hold, pulling her deeper into a dark and suffocating void. But even as her willpower weakened, Amelia clung to the last shreds of resistance. She knew surrender would mean an eternity trapped in a nightmarish cycle. As the potion coursed her veins, she fought against its insidious pull, desperately seeking a way out. Memories flashed before her, both happy and terrifying, intertwined like the twisting branches of the trees. She fought to keep her eyes open, using every bit of the energy she had left. "Ethan," she began in a shaky whisper, "do you remember when we first met? You said you fell in love with me at first sight." Her voice trailed off, hoping to spark a glimmer of humanity in him that could break the curse that bound them together. Ethan's gaze softened unexpectedly, a certain melancholy etched into the lines of his forehead. "Yes," he murmured, the predatory gleam momentarily diminishing in his eyes. "You were the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen." Silence hung heavy in the crisp winter air, broken only by the occasional crackle of embers and the faint rustling of branches. Amelia's fingers clenched around a small, cold object hidden in her pocket as she searched for strength. "I remember when you used to say you loved my bravery and determination. Do you still feel that way?" Ethan's expression clouded with confusion, but he met her gaze once again. "Of course, you're still my Valentine." Amelia's heart used to flutter at those words, but now they only stoked the fire of her determination. Her jaw clenched and she squeezed the object in her pocket with enough force to make her knuckles white. She nodded. "Then as your Valentine," she continued, pulling a silver locket from her pocket and holding it out to him, "I want you to remember who I was, who we were." Ethan's eyes widened and his back arched in terror as Amelia opened the locket, revealing a tiny mirror inside. He watched in horror as his features twisted and distorted into something unrecognizable. A primal scream rose in his throat, but no sound escaped as the mirror seemed to suck him into its dark depths. Amelia's hand shook as she held the mirror, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. The air crackled with otherworldly energy, creating a barrier between her and the monstrous being that used to be Ethan. She felt a searing pain coursing through her entire body, yet she refused to let go. This was her final stand. "Remember this, Ethan," Amelia's voice rang out above the chaos. "Remember my spirit, my courage, my love for you, and remember your sin." With a guttural roar that shook the very earth, Ethan was ripped from reality and sucked into the mirror. His screams echoed through the air as he disappeared into the reflective surface. As suddenly as it began, the wind died down and all was quiet except for Amelia's ragged breaths. She looked around at the aftermath of their battle, snowflakes swirling in the air, trees bent and broken, and a gaping hole where the mirror once stood. Exhausted but victorious, Amelia collapsed to her knees in the snow. The locket, which had been the source of all their troubles, now glinted innocently on the ground beside her, a prison for the monster who had once been her beloved. Despite her victory, she couldn't help but wonder at what cost she had saved herself and others from his unrelenting wrath. The weight of her actions settled heavily upon her as she gazed at the shattered remains of their world. Despite her fatigue, Amelia couldn't bring herself to tear her gaze away from the silver trinket lying among the cold ashes of their once roaring bonfire. It glittered in the moonlight, a tangible reminder of both her victory and loss on this cursed Valentine's Day. The frosty night closed in around her as she stood in the hauntingly beautiful forest, its undulating branches creaking mournfully above her. She shivered against the biting cold, but it was nothing compared to the indescribable pain wrenching at her heart, a mixture of relief that it was finally over, despair at what had been lost, and loneliness for what could have been. Amelia slowly rose to her feet. The lovers' retreat they had planned looked more like a battlefield, the remnants of their romantic evening scattered around the camp. Despite her physical weakness and trembling, her spirit felt lighter than it had in months. With each step she took, the horrifying disaster faded into the distance, and with every stride, the tight knot in her chest unraveled. The moon hung low, a silver sickle in a haunted sky, casting an ethereal glow to light the path. Amelia trudged through the snow-covered forest, her breath forming clouds in the frigid air. Step by step, Amelia plodded through the desolate winter landscape until she reached a frozen creek, its once lively ripples silenced by the bitter cold. Each crunch beneath her boots felt as though the entire world could hear her approaching. A sudden urge overtook her, and she stopped in front of the ice, peering at her reflection. Her face looked ghostly pale and weary, but her eyes blazed with a fire that refused to be extinguished. "Love is strange," she uttered to herself in the silence of the night. "It can turn men into monsters and women into warriors." The stillness held her words for a moment before the wind swept them away. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. See you next time. Thank you for watching.